you take any. Oh, hello. Yes.
No, don't need to record it.
How many of you know another language? I bet a lot of you know German or French or a bit of something. But just a little bit of information. According to Statistics Canada, I'm a francophone. And it's because of the question that they ask. And they say, which language did you first learn in childhood and still understand? And my answer to that question is French. Never mind that I've forgotten most of it. I'm a francophone according to Statistics Canada. That's another story which I can tell you if you want to know why I first learned French before I learned English. But if you know another language, you'll know that there are no word in another language translates exactly into something else in the target language. And a dictionary fools us on that because you look up a word and there's the English translation in the dictionary. I once asked, when I was teaching Greek at the university, I drew, this is where I said I would do hand signals because we couldn't put this onto the handout. But you think of a line across paper, and above is the other language, and underneath is English. And what I would do is I'd put words on the top line, or English words on the bottom line, and not you can't draw straight lines down between them. They don't exactly correspond. There's always something about the other word that's not contained in the other language, or vice versa, that the word has a narrower sense than it does in English. Now, we'd use the word hand as an example. Surely the word hand would be the same. Well, it's not. The Greek word for hand is her. But in Greek, that word goes from there to there. And when we say you do it with your hand, we don't mean right up to your elbow, but the Greek does. So that's the same for almost any word you take. There's a sort of an extension in one language or the other that doesn't exist. So there's no strict one-to-one correspondence. And understanding something of this, I think, gives us a better way of understanding the Bible. And I'm going to take I've picked some words where there's a sharp distinction between what's meant by in this case, the Hebrew word, and how it gets translated into English, so that when we read it in English, we can flesh out what is being said in the original Hebrew. And the disclaimer right from the start, I know no Hebrew. What I do know, I've learned from commentaries and from Joel and from from other places, just scrappy bits of this and that. But that's my point, is that you don't have to know the other language in order to be able to gain something from understanding a little bit of what this particular word might mean in the other language that is missing in English or can be misunderstood. So that's my point, that you don't have to know the other language in order to gain something from doing word studies like this. But I want this to be more than a language class. In the process of looking at words, my prayer is that we'll take what we learn and it will speak into our own spiritual lives to give us a sort of a fresh and fuller understanding of who God is and how we ought to behave and how we ought to behave towards one another. And I would be really happy if we came away from this with a new understanding of all of that. Secondly, I don't plan to do all the talking. You have experiences that will play into this meaningfully. And so I hope there'll be a time that we can share and correct one another. So I'm speaking from not a position of authority, but just someone who put some work into thinking about this to start a discussion. And in the weeks that come, other people will do this. And the word, I'm starting with a really good word, which, who is it? Was it you, Del, who sort of your eyes lit up when you saw that I'd chosen the Hebrew word hesed, which if you want a one word as close as you can get, a translation of it would be loving kindness. And I'll come back to where that word comes from. It's not one that it's marked obsolete in the dictionary, and it's not used in ordinary language today. But if you're familiar at all with the King James, it comes frequently in the King James. And what we're looking at is the character of God as he has revealed himself to us, because we could never have figured out what he's revealed to us. And I think of, because this is my background, but I think of the Greek gods, and to an ancient Greek, they recognized that there were forces in the world that were more powerful than they were. And these they would call a god, whether it was the weather or and the word love itself is a god in Greek, because there are things about love that we cannot control. It's more than we can figure out for ourselves. In Hebrew, the word hesed occurs 245 times in the Old Testament, and half of those are in the book of Psalms. One Jewish scholar defined hesed as a free-flowing love that knows no bounds. And that, I think, misses a lot of what I'm going to share with you this morning. But it's most closely connected in the Hebrew Bible with the covenant relationship between God and the children of Israel. So, I forget what went onto your handout and what didn't, but doing those handouts was really helpful to me as well, because it really made me condense everything into one page and a bit. Steadfast love is one where that's how the version that we use here in church, the NRSV, usually translates it. Kindness, faithfulness, and loyalty. There's a strong sense of commitment behind that. And the core idea of the term relates to a loyalty within a relationship. This is all relational. And in fact, as you think about what we know of God, it's all relational. And in relation to the concept of love, hesed denotes God's faithfulness to his people. And it has no exact equivalent in English. We have to get around it with different words. Turn to Psalm 136. You want to see it in practice.
Does the Hebrew have other words for love, or like romantic love, or do they use that same word?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, in fact, how often is hesed used by people, in reference to people? Are you going to talk about that later, or?
A little bit, but if you go ahead, because I want this.
Most often it's used for God. It's
Hesed.
yeah, and less frequently, rarely in reference to people.
Because it encompasses so much more than people can give.
I think that because he is unknown, all you could do is we'll look through these passages and then begin to try and infer how people used it. That's the kind of the question we're trying to answer, I think.
Yes, you're right on target. Yeah.
It's not just an all-encompassing term. Like if I say I love Julie, I wouldn't use that word.
Well, I think it's good. These are the right questions to ask. I know.
Ask us again at the end of the
That's what
class.
I'm saying. Like, let's read through the examples, and
Sorry.
if we just
Am I getting ahead?
no, I think this is right. Like, let's ask the questions. But I mean, as an aside, I mean, this is what we should always do with the language. You know, if you're reading in English, sometimes you come across a word and you're like, oh, well, I know what it means. And your child asks you, or a friend asks you, yeah, what does this word mean? And
English is weird.
well, no, all languages are. Words only have meaning and context. You know, like they don't float down from anywhere, from God. And so they just have a meaning and how they're used. So you have to, well, in the end, you always go back to how is it being used consistently, and you begin to put together a picture of what this word means. So this word trying to say it means X can be unhealthy, like Annabella said. Yeah.
Now,
You're asking the right question. So let's look at the passages, and at the end, if you still think you're unsatisfied, then we can try and find more examples.
245 of Um, so you've got Psalm 136. Do you see why I've chosen that one?
Yes. That's how it comes so many times. It's like 20 times in this one song.
The second half of every verse is his steadfast love endures forever. And here we have the first part of an answer to the questions that you, Hilary, and Kevin were asking. Is this the way that we love one another always, consistently, forever? In that verse, the NIV, which used to be my favorite translation, I'm not sure it is anymore, is translated just love. His love endures forever. You get steadfast love. The King James has mercy. And there already we've got something that's a bit different in our thinking from love. I like the Message. It says his love never quits. And somehow that sort of speaks straight to us in a way that that his steadfast love endures forever doesn't really get to me in the way that his love never quits in the Message does.
My love is eternal.
You've got his love is eternal. Yeah. Which translation is that? Pardon?
Good news.
Oh, good news. Okay. It emerges in Scripture as a foundational expression of God's character. And I was just thinking this is a really good place to begin, because what did Jesus say was the greatest commandment? It's a good place to start. Go to Micah 6:8. And what does the NRSV say, or the Message, or anything, or Good News? What have we got? Could someone read that? Micah 6:8.
He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God.
Okay. So the Hesed there is translated as, which of those? Kindness, yes. And that's different again.
I know it's mercy in King James.
Mercy in King James, yes.
It's interesting. This morning I read the book of Micah
Oh,
because I wanted to figure out where this particular passage was, and I couldn't remember what chapter, so I said, I'll read the whole thing.
I did that with Hosea, and which was the other book this week.
In the Message, it says, be compassionate and loyal in your love.
Okay, which is Hesed.
Message, yeah.
Yeah. I think, am I right? The NRSV has kindness there. Yeah. But it's something deeper than just kindness, what we think of kindness. But it's a steadfast, covenantal loyalty that persists despite human failure. And when we read words like that, we sort of, I think, get the impression, at least I do, a very austere God who, yeah, I love you. But there's no feeling in those words. And once you add kindness, that puts a different, I think, a different tone on it. And it's an important book, an important word in the book of Ruth. And this is where I asked Joel if he would share something, because he started thinking of the book of Ruth immediately. So Joel, over to you.
It's used 3 times in the book of Ruth. And if you're familiar with the story of Ruth, we have Naomi, who is living in the foreign land, Moab, and her husband dies, and then her 2 son-in-laws, her 2 sons die, who had been married. And so we have the daughters, Ruth and Bill, that's right.
Oprah,
Oprah, there we go. And
Orpah.
and they say, well, Ruth says, Naomi says, I'm going to go back to Israel. I'm leaving Moab. I've lost everything. And the daughters say, well, daughters-in-law say, we'll go with you. And she says, I have nothing to offer you, but may go back to your own mother's house. May the Lord Chesed do Chesed to you, as you have been with me, as you have done to the dead and to me. And then Naomi goes on to elaborate. I'm too old to have a husband. I'm too old to have children that could be given to you. And no, it has been bitter for me because the Lord's hand has been turned against me. Go back to your own homes. And Orpah goes back, and we don't fault her for that. There's no sense that that's wrong. The next time it's used, it's ambiguous. And if you want to look it up, it's in Ruth chapter 2, verse 20. So Ruth and Naomi arrived back in Bethlehem, the city that was a house of bread, and where Naomi was from. And Naomi enters town and announces to all the villagers, this is what God has done to me. I'm bitter. I have nothing left to live for. I'm all alone. I have nothing. She's not noticing that she actually has Ruth with her, and it remains an open question as to whether God is faithful or not, or said or not. The next time we see it is in chapter 2, verse 20. And it's ambiguous. Ruth, as we know, goes out to glean, and Boaz walks up and says, the Lord be with you, to his workers. And they say, oh. And they work. And Boaz hears about Ruth and shares all sorts of food with her and protects her. There's an illusion that she's under threat from the young men, protects her, and then she goes home. And when Naomi finds out who it is, in verse 20, she says, blessed be Boaz by the Lord, whose Chesed has not forsaken the living or the dead. So the ambiguous part is that male pronoun. Is that saying that God is Chesed, or Boaz has shown Chesed? Blessed be Boaz by the Lord, whose Chesed has not forsaken the living or the dead. What adds to that question is that Boaz says to Ruth, may the Lord spread his kanaf, his wings, or his cloak around you. If we go then, the next time it's mentioned is in chapter 3. Ruth has come to Boaz at night, really at great risk to both her integrity and her actual safety, going to a man who had been drinking and is exhausted in the middle of the night, and uncovers him. And he wakes up, he's woken up and recognizes what all of this means for both her integrity, but also what she is proposing, that he marry her. And he says to her in verse 10, chapter 3, verse 10, may you, well, actually, she speaks first, and she says, I am Ruth. It's just a powerful, dramatic moment. She said, Boaz, spread your wing, your cloak over me, which is exactly the words that he had asked that God would do to her. So there's a parallel there between Boaz and God. And then Boaz responds by saying, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. This last instance of your hesed is better than the first. You have not gone after young men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, do not be afraid. Both of them are called Hayil, virtuous, both Boaz and Ruth. And then we know how the story resolves. There is a kinsman who must be allowed the chance to marry Ruth first, and he declines. It is no fault of his own. Nobody blames him for not doing that, but Boaz is seen to go above and beyond what was called for from the relationships, just as Ruth went above and beyond what was called for from the relationships. And in all of this way, then we know that it's resolved and the Lord blesses their marriage and they have a son that leads to King David and then to Jesus. In this story, then, we have Ruth who acts with Hesed, and we have Boaz who acts with Hesed. And it's not in a simple way, it's to almost to everybody. Ruth to her mother, to God, to integrity, and to Boaz. She shows Hesed. And Boaz to his workers, to women, to Ruth, and to God, he shows Hesed. And the question at the beginning was, will God show Hesed? And it's lived out through people. It is enacted. Their faithfulness is something that goes, we have the foils, they go above and beyond what other people are willing to show in terms of love and faithfulness and duty, and in this way manifest God's Hesed.
Reactions, responses.
It's a very situational word, isn't it? I mean, it can vary,
Yeah.
according to context.
And it's a lot different than just kindness. Like when you just reading it, when you talk about it, then it's a lot bigger than kindness. When you just
Yes,
it
it's
up
a lot
like that.
bigger than kindness. There's a sort of faithfulness and a commitment to what's right and all of that.
Seems to encompass everything that could be good and pure and right.
Yeah. Coverdale, Miles Coverdale, 1535, who made the first translation of the whole Bible into English that was printed before the King James, but not long before the King James. He translated this word as loving kindness, and he coined that word. Realize, and my question would be, why didn't he just use the word love? What? Why did he coin the word loving kindness?
Love was inadequate for what he was trying to express.
Yeah, some of which we've already
Mm.
said. Yeah.
Read on that a little bit. There's this theory. I think it's like a literary theory, Michael Bakhtin, saying that, all words kind of carry this cloud of meaning around them with associated words.
Yeah.
And so I think by coining loving kindness, you kind of get a little bit more focused, like Hillary was saying, about what exactly do we mean by this. So you're kind of maybe redirecting, editing the cloud in order to make it.
That was Bakhtin.
It was Bakhtin.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
What does the word kind, what did it mean before the modern, like in the medieval world?
Were you asking me?
I cheated. But I'm not sure if I trust what I'm seeing on the internet on some of these.
So what do you think?
Well, that it suggests that it comes from the word for kin.
Yes,
Okay.
there's a
So what do
huge
you-
number of words in English with K and N. The king is one of them, which refer to one's wider family and how one ought to behave to them. And so kind is how we behave to our kin. Yes.
And doesn't kind also mean cattle?
Pardon?
doesn't kind also mean cattle? Like a herd of cattle?
Cattle,
Yes.
that's kine, Kine.
K-I-N-E.
This is different,
Okay, that's
yes.
what it is.
I don't think we're related to them.
Well, I wasn't sure if it was talking about like a herd, like
No, no.
sticking together.
Well, yeah. It's probably connected way back in the language. Kevin, you're about to say something.
Just think. God created animals, he created them, their kind.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
that's. Instead of, like we think of kind as, you're being kind to a stray dog or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being kind to that. I'm not thinking of kind as in a group or a.
Well, you're treating it
relations.
like kin.
Yeah.
You're deciding to treat something, and this is I think it's harder for us.
Yeah.
Because we don't have loyalty anymore as much. I mean, what do I owe mom and dad? Is it not a straightforward question? Or what do I owe the king, the queen? What do I owe my neighbor who's, we're from the same really kind of extended family? Those were very simple questions in one sense to answer in a pre-modern world in most cultures and in different forms, but you look at the stories from those times, and a lot of the drama circles around the things that are owed from one person to another, especially to family, to kin, to extended family. That is some of the basic tensions that existed, and that doesn't really apply to us anymore. So I think that's the connection that would have been made in the early 1500s, that God is showing like the kind of love and loyalty that is due to family. Kindness. Yeah.
So that, my kid says, the Lord requires you to love kindness.
Yes.
And I thought, why would you be required to love kindness? That should be easy. But that's what you guys are talking
Yeah,
about.
it's exactly right. And God demands of us that we reflect his character. And so that we show to one another the kindness that he has shown to us. To everybody. Whether they're our type or not our type, they're using another familiar phrase there. We show kindness. Story of the Good Samaritan illustrates that beautifully. Tiffany, what are you thinking? You have a face.
I think I said this before the last time this was brought up, but I'm like, oh, so you mean people whose religious and political ideologies I disagree with, I have to be kind to in the way that I talk about them and think about them. And that is not an easy thing.
Okay, thank you for taking us into that territory. But
Notice
yes.
that's very carefully, not specific.
All right. I can't imagine what you're thinking. In fact, where I started thinking about a class like this was from, of all places, a commentary on the book of Jeremiah that I was reading. And there was a comment on this very word that really set me thinking. And the commentator said that such a quality of character lies at the foundation of all true community and all true fellowship. It's the virtue that knits society together. And when the term is used of God, it denotes that deep commitment of God to his people that reaches out beyond the mere demands of reciprocal obligation, or such as those specified by law or custom. And then it was a quality which God might have expected to find to some degree in his people, but which, alas, was often lacking. And if you look at the times that this word is used in connection with people in the Old Testament, more often than not, it's God saying, you didn't show hesed to me and you didn't show hesed to one another. And essentially that's why they got driven into exile.
Do we have to be careful, a little bit careful on how we define kindness in our culture in terms of I was sort of always brought up to believe that being kind meant always being nice.
Ugh.
You know, sort of that
Okay.
namby nice thing, and
Right.
yet sometimes the kindest thing I could do, say, for example, for my child, was to let them fail and fall on their face occasionally, so they would learn something that was more important than just me being nice to them. So I'm just curious about how do we define niceness and how is kindness defined?
You're right on target. That was coming up in what I'm going to say. I'm just skipping down a bit. Oh, is it on the handout? That it's not, this is not, God is not, how can I say this? I'm going to say not nice, and that's the very sense in which you're saying, in that, I mean, if, often I think it helps to think of our relationship with our children. That there are times when we have to say no, or not now, as part of what in the bigger picture is loving them. And there's an I think I've got accountability on that list of things that you have, and I haven't got it in my notes here, but there's also accountability. And that there are times when God says, no, not now. And I don't know whether you've had that experience. I had a striking experience of just being aware of something that I was doing that was wrong, and I hadn't thought about it in that way. And it's interesting. I remember the effect of this on me, but I can't remember what it was that I was doing. I've conveniently forgotten that, so I couldn't share it even if I wanted to. But the overwhelming sense of God's kindness in correcting me. And if you've ever known God correct you over something, and it may be through the words of somebody else who really cared about you, or it just might be directly in prayer or in the scriptures, but being corrected by God is the most overwhelming, powerful, and an experience of his kindness. So there are times, and if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be loving us, all of us. I haven't got a copy of the handout or whatever it is that you have. But do I say something about accountability there? Yes. Oh, Deuteronomy 7:9. Can we look that up? Someone got Deuteronomy 7:9. Can you read it?
Oh, this is from the Revised Standard. This is, know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. You want me to go any further?
Yes, you one more.
And requites to their face those who hate him by destroying them. He will not be slack with him who hates him. He will requite him to his face.
Strong word. That's very black and white.
Mm.
Yeah. And this tension that we have in those two verses prevents, has said, from becoming sentimental. It's not a sentimental love, it's a strong covenantal love, but not a sentimental love that says, oh, well, that's all right. Go ahead and do what you like.
It's more like, this is how it's going to be.
Yes, yes, that's very helpful. Yeah, this is how it's going to be. And it doesn't come in the beginning of Genesis. I was trying to think back to the creation stories. And I mean, this is what we find later on in the scriptures, that God created us to be in fellowship with him, not wanting a world in which he is alone, but wanting people to be committed to him with the kind of loyalty he has to us. But it doesn't say that back there in Genesis. But I think the concept perhaps is behind all what happens in the creation story. The other thing that spoke to me so much was this stability that is part of Hesed. Look up. Well, I've got. I'll come back to Psalm 40. That's an interesting one. Psalm 51, 1. Does anybody know that by heart? And what that psalm is about? Psalm 51.
So what's the first word then? You don't remember. Mine says have mercy.
Have mercy. Yes. This is after David has sinned with Bathsheba, and Nathan has come to him. At least it's tied to that incident. The psalm may have been written separately from all of that, but later on, and I think it may say at the top of the what little note at the top of your translation, connecting it to David and Bathsheba.
And this one says, to the choir master, a psalm of David when Nathan the prophet came to him after he had gone into Bathsheba. So it's very clear that that's.
Well, it says that was added later, because when it reads later on, David says, against you only have I sinned. It's hard to see that it was only against God that David had sinned. And what about Uriah? And so that's why that was read back, that this is how David felt, certainly, when he realized what he had done. And in verse 1, the word that translates Hesed.
Mercy and abundant mercy.
Yeah. Psalm 69, 16. Can't remember what that is.
I keep reading it here.
Yeah, keep
So
reading it.
next
Have you got
one.
it?
Answer me, O God, for thy steadfast love is good. According to thy abundant mercy, turn to me. So we got abundant mercy and steadfast love. It's almost as if they're slightly different things.
Yes, I don't know what the other word is, but. And Joel, this was your one, Psalm 63, 3, and that you wondered what that meant.
Oh. Did I?
You did. You asked me what it meant, and I didn't know. 63, 3. Can you read it?
It's because your steadfast love is better than life.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it mean? It's better than
Well, is that how you feel about God?
We used to sing that in Jesus.
Are you shrugging your shoulders? You started with what's so hard to understand about that? And I'm pushing it back. If you know the answer, help me.
I think it means I'd rather be dead than separated from the love of God.
that satisfy you.
Is that how we feel? No. I think it's easier to think about how much it means to me that my friends like me, or my wife, or my parents, but do I really wake up in the morning or in the middle of the night, sit and think about how good it is that God loves me in the same way? That sort of satisfying feeling of.
Depends what we've gone through in life. Like some people have gone through horrendous things and they've seen God at work, and they know what can happen when God is not there in abundance, visible abundance. So I think there are people who.
And yet he's not really looking back over his life. He's actually talking of just in that very moment, much the same way that if you're someone you love holds you or you hold them, there's just a satisfying there's something that feeds us within, and that seems to be what David is saying. I've seen you in the sanctuary. My soul is satisfied with a rich feast. When I think about you on the bed, I meditate on you. Now, you're right, he'll say, you've been my help in your canal. In the shadow of your, I sing for joy. My soul clings to you. So I guess it moves a little bit away for me, has said a little bit away from just a sense of duty, a sense of, like, we might say, well, I owe this to somebody. And there's this other level, a more affective, like some sort of affection, some sort of real exchange that happens here. This person seems to have a personal sense of love for them in that moment that is fulfilling and meaningful, that isn't just about a contractual sort of, I know I can count on you to have my back sort of thing. No,
Isn't that the kind of hyperbole that we say people who are deeply in love use that kind of hyperbole all the time? Anyway, right? Like, I love you so much. I love you more than anything. I love you more than life. I love, whatever.
Yeah.
So that it's an emotional deep depth more than just the duty. And that's, I don't know, I'm going to get back up to the covenant thing, but I was reading E.J. Gupta's thing about why the first Christians were weird, strange, and
Oh,
compelling.
yes.
And one of the things he suggested was for all the Greek and Roman gods, the relationship was one of duty. You do the sacrifices because that's what gods require. And if you don't do it right, they might get mad at you and
Yes.
cause tragedy. But said when the biblical people came along, the Jews and the Christians came along, said, no, we have a loving relationship with God. That was strange to the, because they hadn't
absolutely.
occurred to the pagans that you would you'd have a relationship, a loving relationship with your God. That was just odd.
Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning, that
Yeah.
it's something, the Greeks never figured this out.
Yeah.
And so strange, I just thought there were strange glimpses in some of the tragedians, but it's in their philosophers never.
I mean, yeah, Plato's God was just
Yeah, that's right.
crazy.
Yeah,
And the same with the Hindu Brahman is beyond all.
yeah.
There's nothing, the idea that you have a personal
We
relationship.
could never
is-
have dreamed of it.
And the Greek gods were very capricious.
Yes.
You really couldn't say, they weren't consistent at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our God doesn't play games with us. He kind of lays down the
There's
law.
this stability, which
Yeah.
that says a lot to me, that the stability of God's love. And I think we naturally, again, just a part of our fallen nature, and I'm speaking just straight out of my experience, but when we sin, we feel that God doesn't love us anymore. We feel that, just like Adam and Eve, that they hid themselves. And we feel that not only do we hide themselves, but that God is gone for the moment, even if he comes back. And that's wrong. He loves us steadfastly, whatever, never changes. Exodus 34, 6-7. This is one of those passages. I was thinking about this and similar passages. I'll comment on that in a second. If someone could read Exodus 34, 6-7.
And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation.
Yeah, what an enormous amount is said in those 2 verses, sorry. Yeah. That collection of, in that description of God and the different ways it's put, that comes again and again, doesn't it, in the Old Testament, that sort of, that collection of things. And this is what I wondered, whether it was something that every Jew knew by heart, and sort of brings it up almost as a phrase that's just written into their understanding of God.
It presents a paradox in a way. How God is both loving, forgiving, and just. So what does it mean to forgive if there's still consequences?
Mm.
Almost like you studied.
But ultimately, he has a purpose for us, which if we know him through Jesus Christ, we are longing to be conformed to. That's the other place where this word comes frequently is the book of Hosea. And you know the story of Hosea, that God commands Hosea to marry a prostitute, and she is unfaithful to him, and he goes and he woos her again, and she repents and comes back. Hosea 6:6. You got it, Tracy?
For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offering.
Yeah, that comes repeatedly also in the Old Testament. That people, I like their relationship with the Greek gods, thought they could put things right just by offering them a sacrifice, and God's saying that's not what it's all about. He wants our steadfast love.
Which makes me wonder, why did he institute sacrifices in this? Other than, yes, you have to have something special and give something special to God.
As
It
N.T.
seems-
Wright would say, that's a discussion for another day.
Very that you said it was for us, not for God, and I
Right.
found that very. It just made sense of it, because it does seem to me always weird, like, well, why are you burning this thing? But for the people, if I'm understanding what you're
Yeah,
saying.
why don't I?
But if that is, oh, okay, I did that, now I can feel, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. I think that is one of the ways of understanding it, that the sacrifice, the blood is, especially the one for sin, what's that? The Day of Atonement. The blood is sprinkled over the people. And it's a covering. We're atoned for, we're covered, we're safe. Because we're the ones with the shame. We're the ones with the fear.
But also very much something has died to try and make.
Sure, there's a
it right.
lesson there too.
You know,
The risk of defying the teacher here who said it's too big. We might remember that it is a plausible theory and coherent that all human cultures begin with human sacrifice.
Mm.
Over and over again, if you look into cultures, this is what you see. Stonehenge, and it's great. It's a graveyard as well, for all of the wonder of it. The earliest place we have is in Turkey or Armenia, somewhere around there, where the 10,000 years old, and it's an ancient site. And so people were all hunter-gatherers, and the only thing they have is this gathering place. And it will not surprise anybody if what we find in the end is human DNA, that this was a place of human sacrifice. And so the story of Abraham becomes this journey of God saying, I never asked for this. I never wanted this. This is not the way to make yourselves feel better or get along. You're not appeasing me by killing each other. And he institutes animal sacrifice. That's the substitution. That's one way of understanding the trajectory. It's the theory. Some people, but
I'm not sure where I'm supposed to disagree with that.
well, just that it's tangent.
Oh, okay,
Rabbit hole.
okay.
You kind of divert away from the rabbit hole and into maybe a different one. I think that bit in, we were just looking at, in Hosea is also, maybe we've already talked about this, but putting into different terms. It's not like religion is a system. God says, this is what I want mercy, not sacrifice. So it's kind of like the whole thing with magic. It's not like you can do X, Y, and Z and then produce result.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, it's not like magic.
It's terrible. The problem is once I start talking, I also.
Keep going.
Karl Barth has I just thought it's a really helpful thing in one of his books where he says, it's not like, we think of it as Christianity versus Buddhism, Christianity versus Shintoism or whatever. And he said, it's not like that at all. And it's that whole, I think this is where people get the whole, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. He said, Jesus confronts Christians in the same way that he confronts Buddhists, in the same way that he confronts whomever. We are all confronted by Jesus, who says, I desire this, I desire mercy, I desire steadfast love. God desires these things. And are you willing to do that? And in as much as we do that, we're on the right track. That helps. Well, you made me think of it.
Do you know what it would feel? Probably sink down deep into my unconscious and then reappear at just the right time. Thank you.
Let's look, the last reference is to Psalm 40, 10 to 11, and I'm going to ask you to read between the lines here. But what does it say? What does the text actually say? Psalm 40, 10 to 11.
Verse 10,
Yes, I'm just trying to find my Bible here.
not hidden your saving help within my heart. I have spoken of your faithfulness in your salvation. I have not concealed your steadfast love and your faithfulness from the great congregation.
Yes, and some people have seen in that almost a foretaste of what Jesus Christ has done for us.
Now, verse 11 says, do not, O Lord, withhold your mercy from me, that your steadfast love and your faithfulness keep me safe forever.
Yeah,
Evils have encompassed me.
yeah. Can you see in that the connection? To what Jesus Christ has done for us.
Interesting, when it says, I've not concealed the steadfast love in your faithfulness congregation. So we're not off the hook as far as get to receive all this. Mission is to go forward, share it
Yeah,
with others. So it's not just about us. Once again, it's about including every community.
so. Okay, what would you take away from this? Or what do you think we should explore further?
I think even just in reading the Bible, when we see some of those words, trying to be more, no. To try and think about some of those words as a little bigger than they actually are.
I'm just so struck by the stability and commitment and loyalty of God towards us when you think of all that we do to wander away. And nothing changes his commitment to us. I need to remind myself of that each morning. Well, thank you. This word that we've looked at today is part of a cluster of words that often appear together, and we got it in that reading from Exodus 34. And the other two are mercy, justice, and mercy. Like love and justice and mercy, and they bleed into each other so much that sometimes you'll get one of the other words translated as love or kindness, or mercy gets different words in of those three get translated as they all interchange in English. So I want to look at that sort of the correlation of love and justice and mercy next week, and take the other two, and then somebody else will be on for the week after that.
I think Dale's next week.
Oh, are you?
Is that right?
I'm ready. I said I would.
Well, we
Okay,
can, we'll sort that out.
we'll sort that out. Yes.
Dell, and then Brian is leading it. I'm still as herding cats a little bit. Cheryl is going to look at shalom. Brian wants to look at covenant.
And purity.
That's Dell's.
That's Dell,
That's-
Dell is purity. Reed and I are going to look at heaven and hell in those words. And then we'll see. Annabelle, the rest of us may have more words, but we're trying to at least get those dates set.
Yeah, okay.
And if you have other words that you think we should.
I don't think you read all the emails I sent you. But that's okay.
Okay. I did. Doesn't mean I took your requests.
Was glory one of them by any chance?
But I'd love to look at the word glory, but yes, I really would love to, because it's always puzzled me as to what that means.
Yeah.
And if you think of other things, this is a sort of a discussion class, and you can see we're discussing it all openly here.
I'm glad you covered the idea about the difficulty in translation. Because that's part of what mine about purity as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And the translation introduces ideas that don't belong there just because of the way English works.
in this case, the words apply in some contexts, but there's a special context, biblical Hebrew context that we don't have an equivalent concept for it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Did we between here or sure?
I think we can just leave it the way it is for sure.
Use this. Okay.